Welcome to the AZ Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Saul Bookman, joined by the one, the only Anthony Gimino, and also from the Believe Network, the Believe in Wildcats podcast, it is Matt Reynoldson. Thanks, guys, for joining us today.
Thanks, Saul.
I said that with as much enthusiasm as we saw on the field today.
I wish it was on better terms. I really do. But, we got to talk about the bad ones so we can get to the good times, and maybe the good times this year are in March, because they're certainly not December.
I tell you what, listen, it's another week, another disappointment by this team. Now 5 losses in a row. It has not been pretty whatsoever. Obviously, if you look across Twitter, I mean, I think, listen, at the beginning of the season, and I will fully admit, I drank the Kool-Aid because of all the people that have at least seen Coach Brennan in work, all the people that told me, like, you guys are in great hands, like he had crap facilities at San Jose State, all the whole 9 yards. And I just did not think that anybody could come up so short in terms of meeting expectations as what we're looking at a team that's not even going to make a bowl game this year. That's how bad this has gotten. Guys, your initial impressions of this game.
But outside of doing more with less, or outside of doing less with more, I do want to interject here. Sorry, Anthony. People have said for years that Brent Brennan is an offensive genius, making chicken soup out of chicken, what
crap. Yeah.
And we haven't seen that this year. He hired Dino Babers apparently with the assumption that he was going to give up play calling, with a group of completely inexperienced play callers behind them. And they did that 3 games in without a real plan for Dino Babers to be involved in the offense. And then on top of that, they have ridden Matt Adkins. They have ridden him to the bone and perhaps ruined him as a future play caller, because they have put so much on his shoulders and he is completely lost out there. Babers doesn't seem to be helping him. Brennan doesn't seem to be helping the offense at all. And it's a mess right now. And this injured defense finally broke through today. The cracks finally turned into, the Hoover Dam, if you will.
Yeah. Anthony?
Yeah, I think the only thing worse than being outraged right now is being apathetic. And that's, I didn't want to watch the second half of that game. Well, I didn't want to watch the last 3 quarters of that game. I would have loved to have been flipping around watching a game I was more interested in. So I can't even imagine what that is like from a fan perspective right now, who's trying to balance that. And on one hand, the disappointment and then the outrage over that disappointment, which leads to the apathy, which leads to the nobody showing up at the stadium, which leads to bad off seasons, which leads to bad attendance, which leads to coaches getting fired.
Yeah. No, 1,000,000%. Listen, I think, we could point to the first drive of the game, but I actually will go to the second drive of the game, which ironically is our Sanderson Ford drive of the game. And now for the Sanderson Ford drive of the game, football is back, and so are the deals at Arizona's largest Ford dealership, Sanderson Ford. Shop America's most awarded Ford dealership with no hassle, no pressure, and no nonsense. The Arizona Wildcats definitely were hassled and definitely had a lot of nonsense out there on that first drive by, they get a 10-yard completion to T-Mac. You're like, okay, good, because UCF is not very good at stopping the pass. And then the next 2 plays, they run without any gain. Quali Conley up the middle for 0 yards, and then -3 yards in the second play. Then they throw a half-ass screen pass. They get out of there. Okay, fine, whatever. I said earlier in Know Your Foe with Kevin Thomas that I was really looking for that second drive. What were they going to do on that second drive? Whether they were up or down, it didn't matter. I wanted to see that second drive because typically they've gone 3 and out, 4 and out, whatever on those second drives. And, well, much to my lack of a surprise, Quali Conley fumbles the ball on the first snap, and UCF recovers it. Then they obviously they run right in for the touchdown on the next play. To me, that was the game. 14-0. The rain was pouring. It was basically, it felt like you were going to be outmatched today. And when you're going up against a team that can run the ball as effectively as UCF can and can stop the run as effectively as UCF can, I just felt like it was over at that point. What do you say, Anthony?
I would have given, I had a little more hope. I would have given you that to that UCF's third drive, backed up at their one, game still early, 99 yards. 99 yards. That to me was the backbreaker.
Definitely. And I actually agree with Saul here in that it was over at that 14-0 standpoint just because the torrential downpour started. And we had rain in the forecast today. It was expected out in Orlando. This was not a surprise pop-up storm. And I had thought all week that the team that trails by 2 scores early, if the rain starts, it's going to be a tough spot. You know, Arizona does not run the ball well enough. And it points to a microcosm issue of the entire offensive system for this entire year in that why has the offensive line regressed with 3 all-conference caliber players? I mean, you had Josh Baker, Wendell Moy, and Jonah Savanaya coming back, and they were all conference level players in the Pac-12 last year. I know you're replacing 2 guys. I know you don't have your starting right tackle in Rhino. There is a lot to this in the offensive line, but the offensive line has regressed by a lot. The receiver room has regressed by a lot. The running back room has stayed okay. The quarterback room has regressed. There is so much more than just the play calling that's regressed for this offense. And that's why 14-0 seemed like an insurmountable deficit, which is inexcusable as we go into the second day of November and now into the bye week with 2 weeks to sit on this, frankly, unacceptable performance by Arizona.
Listen, I will piggyback on that, Matt. That's the one thing that, you know, when you're sitting back and you're looking at this football team, and I know there's a lot of people out there still probably today that will excuse Brennan because it's year one. It's hard to really get a grasp of a coach and his system in year one and blah, 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 right? Even in the 1-win Jed Fish season, like at least you could see players making a little bit of progress in terms of their own abilities, right? I don't feel like we've really seen that very much across the board, defensively or offensively. And Dwayne Aquina is doing everything he can. He threw the kitchen sink at him on the first couple of drives, a lot of different blitz looks and packages, and it almost worked, but it just was too much to overcome. And I'm looking at this team, especially offensively, because I feel like that is the really the bruise on the body for a team that was expected to put up 30+ points a game, to come up so woefully short and not have the amount of development in not only the talent, but also the scheme and the adjustments as you move forward. To me, that is really what has been the calling card. If you were to want to let Brent Brennan go at some point, is just that to me feels like negligence, gross negligence on a variety of different levels.
It felt like when they made the switch to Matt Atkins that things would change dramatically. Anybody would be able to see the difference in the scheme. It's not. And I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, how they're divvying up the game plan, how much influence Brendan has, how much influence Dino has. But if you showed me a game tape of game 2 and game 7 or 8, it's the same stuff.
Yeah.
Sure.
But
And
to your point, I mean, Dwayne, Arizona did blitz a lot in the first couple drives. They did also blitz. Sometimes it didn't work. It was 3rd and 12 on UCF's first drive. Dwayne sends 6 guys, and they complete the pass for a first down.
But
so I mean, at least he was trying some stuff, but
Sure.
it just wasn't working.
Offensively, Anthony and Saul, it goes so much deeper than just play calling. It does, because this cannot be pinned, and it's going to be pinned to a certain extent on the shoulders of Matt Atkins for play calling. But this scheme was established in fall camp, and I dog myself a little bit. I put it on my shoulders for not asking the harder questions of why is this scheme, why is going heavier sets going to work when during the entire 7-game winning streak to end the 2023 season, they ran outside zone, they ran zone looks of where they were still spreading the teams out. They ran minimal tight ends, and when they did run tight ends, it was Tanner McLaughlin leaking out of the tight end set. Sometimes he would chip a guy, most times he would not, and most times he would be a fourth receiver out there. So Arizona ran the ball very effectively out of those wide sets last year, and it was better play calling, it was a better offensive system, it was better offensive execution, and it's frankly malpractice for Dino Babers to have come in here, identified this roster, and said, the only way we can win on offense is heavy sets. That was clear lie. I mean, it was a clear just misattribution of what the talent is on this offensive system, and they don't have the tight ends or the offensive linemen to be able to go heavy and continue to run the ball while relying on more receivers to get out in those sets. T-Mac is an elite receiver. You know, they have other good receivers behind them, but they don't have elite blocking wide receivers. And to be a team that runs heavy sets to an effective level, you have to have elite blocking wide receivers. That's been a big problem with the offense. And I think the overall diagnosis of the offense going back to January of 2024 has been a huge issue that has permeated throughout the season, much more than just the play calling.
Yeah, this is a point I made with Mike after last week's loss. The original sin of this offense was created in the offseason. Whatever they thought they were going to do didn't work. And there's only so much you can change during the season. You can do some stuff during a bye, which is, we saw from week 3 to 4, they did change play callers. Did it make a difference? Nah, not really. Now they have another bye coming up. We'll see what happens. But there's from early in the season till now, there's no threat. This team does not threaten defenses horizontally.
No,
there's none of that. We saw UCF do that so wonderfully against Arizona, but Arizona doesn't. On the other hand, I'm going to hit on personnel a little bit, because other than T-Mac, who's a playmaker on this team?
they don't have any.
They don't have any. They don't.
We thought it was Jeremiah Patterson in camp. We really did.
Yeah, I mean, I heard a lot of reports about that.
But I think this
usually I shrug at that kind of stuff. It's camp. Yeah. It's a scrimmage. It's whatever it is. Yeah. But there's very few players I've been able to ever see in camp and know immediately, yeah, that guy's totally legit. Usually it's hey, it looks pretty good. Let's wait and see.
But again, I think scheme has a part to play in that, though.
Oh,
like again, look at
all of it. Yeah,
look at San Jose. Look at San Jose State last year, right? Under Brent Brennan, they go into USC. If you just look at just the highlights of that game and what they were doing offensively, San Jose State, it's remarkably different than what you're seeing right now at Arizona. And I do not, for the life of me, understand why. You were talking about big sets, right? Well, part of their big sets were also tight ends in motion and then clipping the edge and then going out, leaking out, right? Or just straight up going straight into the flat, just giving a little bit of variety to get these guys involved. But I haven't seen any of that all season long. And you can't tell me that San Jose State athletes are better than U of A athletes, although you could probably make that argument this year because it has not looked good on the field whatsoever. And these numbers will prove the point. This is by the numbers by Desert Financial Credit Union. As always, remember, Desert Financial Credit Union is one of the best credit unions in the state. #1 credit union named by Forbes. Yeah, listen, it's a lot to a little. 56-12, the final score, 294 to 256 in the passing game. But here's the big caveat right here: 308 rushing yards to just 5. And folks, before we even got on air, it was at one rushing yard until the last drive where they were able to get 4 more yards on the ground. 602 to 261. That is just an absolute 5 rushing yards.
5.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I did a podcast earlier in the season breaking down the most physical teams in the Big 12. And I had UCF higher than a lot of other people would have had them, because at that point in the season, before this 5-game losing streak that they were on, they were the #1 rushing offense and the #1 rushing defense in the Big 12. I don't know what came about them after a 5-game losing streak, but they found it again today. RJ Harvey running the ball, UCF stopping the run to a very effective level. And going back to your last point, Saul, the only real motion we've seen within this offense is the orbital motion within the run game, where the running back, for some reason, runs all the way around the quarterback and then back and then takes the handoff. Like, that's not effective motion to throw off a linebacker or throw off a defensive back. I don't know what the point of that is in the overall offensive scheme, as opposed to an occasional wrinkle, but that feels like the only offensive motion they use.
Oh, by the way, somebody asked, how many attempts, though? Oh, sorry. Yes, you were correct. 25 attempts to get 5 yards. I don't know what the math on that.
That is 0.2 for those who are
yards per
math challenged like us.
Yeah.
So not great at all. But folks, something that is great is Sanderson Ford. You got to check out Sanderson Ford. They got all the great deals out there. They got the beautiful F-150, which is the one that I'm kind of got my eyes on. And if you go to Sanderson Ford, you can get yourself on a lot of different deals right now. They have a 65-acre facility. I don't know if you've ever been there. If you haven't and you've gone out to the west side of Phoenix, I know it seems like it's a big trek, folks, but if you take the time to go up there, the personal service is going to be elite. You will not regret it. They will take care of you, and they will try to hook you up with the best deal possible. Head to Sanderson Ford and check out the new F-150 trucks with 3.9% financing, 60 months plus, up to $4,000 cash back, and pick up a free pair of tickets to see Weezer, Sublime, and more at November nights while supplies last of 100 tickets. So no purchase or test drive required. And also on that offer on the 2024 F-150 STX, on approved credit from Ford Credit, 1 pair of tickets per household, and requires a valid driver's license. But also, folks, we did mention, listen, there's a lot of stuff that's going on that you're not going to be happy about today. And we understand that. That game was not pleasant to watch whatsoever. But you can help satisfy yourself a little bit by going to Circle K. Go to Circle K and download that great Inner Circle app. Save yourself some money, 25 cents off per gallon at your first 5 fill-ups. So that's going to pay for itself right off the bat. So check out Circle K. They've got beverages that you can get hooked up with. You get 5 free beverages just upon signing up. And then you get discounts on beverages. You get discounts on all their snacks, their hot dogs, the whole 9 yards. They got deals all the time. And occasionally they will also have discount deals on gas, as you guys have probably seen around the valley from time to time, 40 cents off, 50 cents off. It's just amazing. So check out Circle K, because Circle K is the GOAT of all convenience stores, and enjoy your membership exclusive beverage deal. Inner Circle members like you can get any size Polar Pop for just 79 cents. Join Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit circlek.com for details. All right, folks. Listen, we don't have a lot of things that we can point to that we're going to be excited about. So we'll just go ahead and name our Back the A+ player of the game, presented by NUTRL. How about that?
Let's keep it positive a little bit, you know?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's the fans, because if you didn't stick around past the first quarter, you probably won today. So congratulations, everybody that didn't stick around. You probably made the smartest decision, as opposed to all of us who are in this chat. We saw it all the way through, which is a credit, and also, you know, it kind of points to our education, because that was a bad decision. Decision.
Yeah. The winners were the ones who did not play.
FS1 thanks you for your viewership on that one, because they weren't pulling the rating that they wanted to on that, because it was just like you said, Saul, over after the first quarter. I was disappointed as a football fan to watch that kind of sad.
Yeah. You know, listen, there. If we really want to look at this, I think there are some bright spots. There's one particular bright spot that I'm saving for a little bit later on, folks. But some of you have already mentioned his name in the chat. But if we're going to say there's any bright spots, I will say, listen, Noah Fafita didn't throw an interception. I thought when passing, I thought that he did a decent job. But outside of that, there was really nothing else to really point to. T-Mac was effective as usual. But again, it was just really tough sledding out there defensively. Not really much to sit there and say that was great. Sam Olsen's touchdown catch, 1,000,000% fantastic. Eric Brotherton in the chat, absolutely. AZ Cats G, thank you for the super chat. Thanks for being here for emotional support, guys. Of course, as always, and we appreciate everybody in the chat right now giving us some love for being here, and we appreciate you for taking the time out of your Saturday to spend with us. So, guys, what would you say was something that you maybe you can praise?
Yeah, I don't want to step on where you're going to go later in the show.
Okay.
Yeah, I won't even start with that. But yeah, I got nothing. The Olsen TD was nice. That was a nice catch.
It was a nice catch.
Did it change? Did it increase your hope level from like 0.01% to 0.02%? Sure.
Maybe. Matt?
Yeah, look, I think they scrambled effectively. Like, I mean, obviously the defense was just a mess today, right? Like,
But they had to scramble. That's a problem.
Right. But like, we're finding positives here, Anthony. Come on, silver linings. All right.
Okay, go ahead.
But I mean, at some point, if you're gonna win, I mean, it feels like a bowl game is such a long shot right now, which is really, really tough to say, especially after how we came into the season just expecting a lot from the Arizona Wildcats. But they're going to need to, if they're going to win any of these last 3 games and come to a bowl game, or just even finish with 4 wins as opposed to 3, they're going to need to scramble at some point. And I feel like they may have found something the past 2 weeks in the scramble ability. Like, Noah played well. He didn't throw interceptions. He didn't really throw turnover-worthy plays. The only turnover of the game for Arizona was the Quali Conley fumble. And yes, they got dominated and this wasn't a game. But like, if you look at things in a microscope, drive by drive by drive, feels like Noah may have found something. Feels like he found something maybe against pressure that he didn't have in games against Texas Tech and BYU, that it was a massive struggle against teams that would blitz him on the backside. Felt like he kind of found maybe a little bit more of a rhythm. And 7 for 14 on third downs is going to win you a lot of football games. I know it's not perfect. I know there were third downs they left on the table and everything like that, but 50% on third downs is not terrible. And that speaks to their ability to scramble and ability to maybe figure some things out in comeback mode. You just hope throughout the rest of the month of November, especially after this bye week, that they're not in full scramble mode all the time, because it sure looked like it from the start today.
Yeah, at some point I would have liked to have seen more fourth down attempts.
Yeah.
They were consistently giving up 75-yard drives, 80-yard drives. It didn't matter where UCF started from. They were going to score. So you might as well try when you've got 4th and 4 at midfield down 21-0. But Brennan has not, I mean, all year, some coaches, they go into a new spot, or it's just their base philosophy of they're going to be that aggressive coach all the time in those kind of situations. And Brennan is the opposite of that. He's not been that guy at all.
Well, let's a lot of U of A fans, though. I do have to say, what is Brent Brennan's philosophy? What is the identity of this team? We have asked him time and time again what the identity of this team is. Oh, it's a family. Oh, it's a team that fights hard. We saw a team lay down in the rain today. We don't know what the identity of the Arizona football Wildcats are, because this has been an ongoing issue from the start. We don't exactly know what Brennan brings to the table. We don't know what his assistants bring to the table. It's a young staff. Outside of the coordinators, the 3 coordinators that have all coached at an extremely high level in Dwayne Aquina, Dino Babers, and Danny Gonzalez, Babers and Gonzalez having been head coaches, there is very little experience throughout the staff, especially at the Power 5 level. So what is the identity of this team, this offense, this program right now? What does Brennan bring to the table? Because I think a lot of U of A fans are frustrated because you knew exactly what Jed Fish was bringing into Tucson, and you don't know at this point, outside of the family culture, which isn't winning games, what Brent Brennan is bringing into Tucson.
Well, okay, so I would push back a little bit on the Jed Fish thing, just because I don't think anybody really understood what Jed Fish was going to bring to the table outside of maybe he's going to run a pro style offense, right? That's about all we knew about him, and we knew that he was at like 18,000 other places before he got here. So I don't know if we could really say like, oh, we knew that, right? But we were pleasantly surprised with the outcome, obviously, especially last year. With Brent Brennan, at least you had things on tape, right, in terms of like his entire brand, his entire scheme. And then you get over here and it's like, it's not even close to what it at least resembled on film over here. And that, to me, is the biggest blemish. And then in addition to that, here's the thing. I don't know what the players think. I would love to be able to talk to a player behind the scenes to really get a feel for this, because it's either one of two ways for these guys right now. Like a guy like Noah or T-Mac, I don't know if they feel like this is all on us. We've completely, fumbled the bag and people just don't realize it time after time again. Like the whole people don't know their routes thing at the beginning of the season and things like that, right? Number one. Or number two, Brent Brennan did just such a great job of bamboozling everybody into believing that this is going to be like the place you're going to want to be at, that it was the ultimate sell job to keep the, multi-million-dollar talent on your roster. Either way, it's not working out whatsoever. The results are really poor. And now I ask the question to you guys, because everybody's wondering, do you think Arizona will end up either letting Brent Brennan go before the season's over or even when the season's over? Do you see that as a scenario whatsoever here in the next, let's say, 5 months?
I would say the odds are very much against Arizona letting him go.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe a few weeks ago I would have said there's no chance. I can't say that now. It'd be one thing to play reasonably well, fight hard, lose 28-24 at UCF. It was 56-12. There's been a lot of 56-12 type results this season. And again, something we mentioned to Mike last week is Mike was like, "Oh, this is rock bottom." I'm like, "No, we don't know where bottom is.
No.
We got 3 games left and it could get worse."
Yeah.
It could get a lot worse because ASU is sitting there at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So maybe you don't win another game. Maybe you get outscored 150-40 the rest of the way. So I can't say it would never happen. However, Arizona's got to come up with roughly $14 million to let him go, plus paying off assistant coaches. So whatever, that may be another $1 million or $2 million to pay out the rest of their contracts. Then you've got to pony up more money for a new coach. So that's probably another $1 million or $2 million per year on top of what Brennan's making. So now you're talking real money. And I don't know if Arizona has it. Or
outside of the money factor of it, like this is the same pitch. We can't ignore the fact that Brennan was in the running for the job when Jedd Fisch got it. And the same pitch that he brought this time was more than likely the same pitch that he brought back then. And Fisch took a slow build, and we knew from an outsider's perspective, because I was an outsider then, I got to Tucson, I got to KVOA in October of 2023, right at the start of the win streak. But from my perspective, as an outsider, when Jedd Fisch was hired in Arizona, I said, okay, that's an NFL coordinator that's going to figure out his offensive system, that's going to figure out how to coach quarterbacks at the college level, and figure out a system that is either going to be electric in the Pac-12 or going to flop in the Pac-12. Turned out it was electric, just with Noah Fafita at quarterback. So that's the same pitch he made this time around. That's the same pitch Brennan made this time around, was the same pitch he made in 2020 when they didn't hire him. The difference this time was the program was desperate. The program needed a new leader and somebody to just step in right away after Fisch left. And do I think they move off of him? Am I projecting that Arizona makes a change this quickly? No, I'm not. Do I think if this was an NFL team, they would? Yes, I do. If the Cowboys had fired Mike McCarthy last year and brought in a new coach, and that new coach went, for example, 3-14, which is going to be the equivalent of what Arizona looks like this year, that coach will be fired after 1 year. The only difference between those situations is the money, because Arizona finished the season in sort of the same spot that the Cowboys were, just outside of the realm of championship possibility. Obviously, the Cowboys went to the playoffs as a 2 seed and got blown out by Green Bay in the first round. But Arizona in the 12-team realm would have been either a playoff team or right on the fringe of being a playoff team, and didn't get in, obviously. So I consider the NFL equivalent to Arizona last year sort of being the Cowboys, great at home, picked off a lot of teams, won a lot of regular season games, won a game at the end of the season, everything like that. But if the Cowboys had fired Mike McCarthy last year and hired a new coach, and that new coach flopped, the Cowboys would have moved off of him right away. No question. I don't know if Arizona can do that because of the financial situation, but it should because of the football situation.
That's the biggest thing right now is that, how much, again, the wild card here is Desiree Reed-Francois. She, what would she do? Because she's very much about fiscal responsibility. She's a very good fundraiser from what we've been told. She got Missouri out of the red and into the black. She's trying to do the same thing here at the University of Arizona. And I just don't know if she's willing to eat that cost of buying out all those coaches and hiring a new one. But at the same time, I know she understands if you have a half empty stadium next year, that's not doing you any favors either. And how much money do you end up losing? How many boosters do you end up losing by sticking with a person that is absolutely destroying your football program at the moment? Okay. Listen, don't come at me sitting there saying, oh, well, now he's apologizing for Brennan. I'm not saying that. If it were up to me, I think I would make the move right now. But it's not up to me. There's $10 million on the line plus, and you got to be responsible if you're the athletic director in terms of making sure you're making the best decision possible. And, listen, there's a lot of people that have pointed to her hiring record as being good. There's some people that have pointed to the things that she's done in other places, and they haven't been exactly thrilling. But at the end of the day, it is her call, and we'll have to see where it goes. I don't know what that means for the rest of the season. I doubt a move's going to be made. I don't know if even Brent Brennan will even fire anybody off his staff before we even get to next week. I don't know. I know something has to be done after these next 3 games because I guarantee we're probably not making a bowl game. We would have to rattle off 3 in a row, and we'd have to beat ASU at the end of the season, who's probably going to be playing for a bigger bowl than just a regular bowl game. And so there's a lot on the line there, and they have something to prove because we beaten them the last 2 times. So there's a lot on the line. But folks, listen, if you're out there and you're thinking about, man, I just need to take my mind off of this, I need a drink, whatever the case may be, well, we have something for you after this break. Keep it tasty, Tucson. NUTRL is one of the best flavored seltzers out there. You cannot go wrong with NUTRL. It is fantastic. They have so many different flavors, watermelon, tangerine, so on and so forth. They're tasty beverage, and it doesn't feel like you have to really rush through your drink, right? It's just a nice, smooth drink. It's flavorful, and it's carbonated, and it's just one of the best drinks you can get out there. NUTRL's light and refreshing taste will show you what a vodka seltzer should be all about. And the great thing about this is like, you can get it just about anywhere you go now. Every single restaurant, they sell in the store, so it's readily available for you all over the place. So remember to keep it tasty, Tucson. Enjoy responsibly. Anheuser-Busch NUTRL flavored vodka and carbonation are perfect. So, and then also, you see this hat, got the old school logo here. I wish they would bring back this old school logo, not only in the stadium, but also on the field or on the court. This is what we all know about. This is why we fell in love with Arizona. Is this branding right here. This is courtesy of our folks from Brandon Brills. Get yourself one of these hats today, and you can save yourself up to 20% off by doing that by using promo code PHNX by going to brandonbills.com. Not only do they have hats, they have a bunch of fantastic merch. You can't go wrong by going to Brandon Bills. Save yourself some money, save yourself some style points, because you're going to get a lot of style points when you wear these bad boys. So again, make sure you head over to brandonbills.com, use promo code PHNX for 20% off of your first order, courtesy of your good friends here at PHNX. All right, so folks, we just talked about Brent Brennan and whether or not we think he should be let go. But I do want to give a tip of the cap, if you will, as presented by Brandon Bills, as always. Tip of the cap will go to, who is it today? Who is it today, Kevin? Who did we decide we're going to give the tip of the cap to? Kevin, is this thing on? Kevin, is this thing on?
Yes, we're going to give the tip of the cap to Chris Hunter today.
Hey, Chris Hunter. There we go. Chris Hunter, well over 100 yards receiving. He was, he was one of the few bright spots. He did his job today. I thought that, listen, if you could see somebody that was playing with some effort, was able to adjust to the game, I thought Chris Hunter did a fantastic job. And man, it would have been nice to see him kind of come on the scene a few weeks ago, because obviously Arizona could use it.
Yeah, I had somebody text me during the game, is like, who is this Chris Hunter and why haven't they been targeting him all year? And I replied, well, clearly he's a product of Brent Brennan's development system.
Clearly.
Oh, he's got one. He's got one.
7 catches, 102 yards, by the way. So I will give another tip of the cap, by the way, because before this game started, obviously this was the space game down in Orlando. And it's the space game because Port Canaveral is only like 20 miles, 30 miles away from there. That's obviously where Kennedy Space Center is. So they do this every single year. But I just wanted to remind folks that the #1 school in astronomy is your University of Arizona. But, you know, what did that deserve a tip of the cap? Well, after the game started, I didn't want to do it, but we might as well look at something positive. So there you go.
We'll take anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Chris Hunter was impressive all throughout the day. 7 catches on 8 targets is impressive. 35 yards after catch, extremely impressive. It feels like we've seen different Wildcat receivers show up in different ways. We've seen Devin Hyatt, show up at different times. Chris Hunter, haven't seen the production out of Jeremiah Patterson, but we've definitely seen Montana Lamonius Craig have some good games. It's just the consistency in those wide receivers outside of #4 has not been there. But again, we're keeping a positive. Player of the game, Chris Hunter, his first 100-yard game of his career. It was impressive, and it's certainly something that Arizona needs to build on as it looks for a new #1 receiver going forward after the last game we see from #4 on Arizona's campus, which will be the ASU game this Thanksgiving weekend.
What's funny is in the comments, somebody, I think Ron, I think was his name, had said, Chris Hunter had a great game. Too bad he looks like he doesn't want to be here anymore. And I was just like, how do you know that from watching this game?
Yeah.
I don't like, so if Ron, if you have some insight,
the entire roster, then.
like, I mean, listen, after the first quarter, I could have said that about just about any player out there. So
exactly.
Going back to Brent Brennan, I will say this too. I don't like the fact that he doesn't understand what their identity is or should be. And I understand, like, you have to adjust your style based on the personnel you have. But that doesn't mean you need to lose the fundamental core of what your system should be all about, or at least the DNA of your football program. And I don't feel like I see that whatsoever on this field. Listen, you go back last year, right? Here's an example. Jonathan Gannon coaching the Cardinals, and they're a 4-win team. But you saw that they played with a ton of effort. They hit, you knew you were in for a game no matter what when you're playing the Cardinals. Even if you knew you're going to win, they were still going to play you tough. I don't feel that from this Arizona Wildcats team, no matter who steps up. There's not this like next man mentality, next man up mentality. It's just, let's just hope for the best. And that's what it feels like right now. We're just hoping for the best.
Anthony, I'm going to let you lead this one off because I have a full tangent soliloquy to go into. So I want you to lead this one off.
I'm going to be interested after this to go watch and read about Brendan's comments to see if it's the same old stuff that he's been saying after every game. Oh, this is on me. We got to watch. We got to fix some things. We'll figure it out. Like, oh, we've heard this so many times. And that was, one of the great things, one of the kind of strange things about Dick Tomey was after a loss, he was super patient. He would hold long, extended press conferences and explain everything and then put it all back on him because he wanted to make sure that people understood what went wrong and didn't want them blaming the players. After a win, Tomey's like, get the hell out of here. We won. Why are you asking me questions? That's all you need to know. But after losses, he was great, which is the opposite of most college head coaches or NFL head coaches for that matter. But Brennan in a press conference is also not particularly inspiring, not particularly elucidating. You don't really learn anything after listening to him for 10 or 15 minutes. What was your question, Saul? I've already forgot.
It's been so long. I forgot what my question was. Do you feel, I'm taking it that you do not feel inspired by Brent Brennan?
Do not. I don't. And When he was hired, a lot of the comments I got from fans or people I knew or wherever it was were like, "Oh, why are they hiring this vanilla coach?" And you remember, Matt, we all got to meet with him like for 10 minutes. All the different media outlets got to get their one-on-ones with him right after he was hired. And
Yeah.
me and Mike Luke at PHNX, we did our thing, and Brent Brennan was getting up to leave, and I kind of joked with him. It's like, boy, I was like, a lot of people think you're just like a vanilla kind of guy, and he did not like that comment at all. He was really passionate in his response about, those people don't know me at all, and just wait. And like, all we see publicly is the vanilla Brent Brennan. I mean, I think he's got a wicked sense of humor in private. I think he's really, you can see in some of the locker room interviews Arizona did earlier in the year after wins. He's very engaged, active, passionate, but we don't see that on the sidelines. We don't see it. We don't see it in press conferences. And that's all part of the problem. I mean, what kind of fan is going to stand up and get inspired and say, yeah, that's a guy I want to back, and I hope he turns it around?
I think you have to own the stage as a head coach. And, I like what you said there with harkening back to your spring interview with him. I actually kind of felt the opposite after my spring interview with him, did the one-on-one sit down for KVOA, and, felt like I got the answers that I wanted to get out of him. Felt like he didn't dance around anything. But then when it came to press conferences, it felt like he was sort of uncomfortable in that setting. And I had cross-checked that with other people. It's like, oh, okay, the media contingent here at Arizona is a little bit different level than it is at San Jose State. Okay, understandable. But I had only seen the look, response, the complete unsuredness of themselves from one other coach. And that was right when I started my media career in December of 2014 as a student at the University of Nebraska. As you can see right up here, as a student at the University of Nebraska. Mike Riley came in as Nebraska's head coach, and it felt like from the very start that he didn't have the demeanor, the intensity, the wherewithal, the backbone to be able to handle the expectations, the weight of what it was to be the head coach of Nebraska football. That, drew out, and that, proved out in 3 years, really just less than 3 years. This feels like it's done the same as far as an intensity standpoint, as far as an expectation standpoint, in less than 1 year. Yeah. It feels like Brennan is not just timid at the podium, but somewhat unprepared at the podium. And I like the guy. I think he's a wonderful human. I think he's a good football coach that is not at the position in his career where he's ready to handle this program and the expectations that come with it, where he was ready to make the hard decisions in January and February, and then subsequently in April and May, and then subsequently in August to put this program, to put this team on the right track. He said this team is going to be led by players, and the players have led, but the players have led without any accountability being forced upon them by the coaches. And I think that that's a problem that permeates throughout the roster.
So Nick Saban had this quote where I just love it. It's exceptional people don't want to work with mediocre people, and mediocre people don't want to work with exceptional people. And the reason why is because, exceptional people, obviously they want nothing but the best. They want to push for greatness. Whereas mediocre people are like, it's good enough. To me, if you're looking at which one is Brent Brennan right now, I think right now you would have to say that it's mediocre and that this has been good enough, but obviously the results have not been good enough. And so this is a less than stellar performance from your first year head coach. And listen, you could spare me the first year stuff because I have seen too many coaches come into a program in year number one and at least input their will into the team in terms of, the way they're going to approach games, what kind of, adjustments they make year over year. Like I've seen it too many times where coaches can be successful in year one. So I get that. And the crazy thing is like, we're not asking him to win a national championship in year one. Yeah, we would have loved to gone to the Big 12 championship game, but if they would have won 8 games, 8-4. Yeah, at least could have dealt with it because they were competitive all season. They won some good games, whatever. But they're not even doing that. They're not even going to make a bowl game. You can't drop from 10-3 all the way to 3-9 because right now that's what they're staring. Even Houston is not a layup like we thought it was going to be earlier in the year. It's just crazy to me that there will be people that will justify why you should keep Brent Brennan other than money. And that is right now, I can't see it. And listen, I agree with you, Matt. I like Brent Brennan as a person. I think he's a nice dude. But I remember another dude that was really nice that came wildly short of expectations. And he was the head coach of the Phoenix Suns last year. And guess how many years he got to coach the Suns?
Yep.
1. And that was it. That was all we needed to see because we knew that they were never going to live up to their expectations. I feel the same way currently right now about Brent Brennan. I'm going to give him the last 3 games to kind of see like, hey, can you pull this thing together? Maybe you reel off 3 and you get to a bowl win, and maybe we could just move on to next year and see where it goes. But as of right now, he has not done anything to curry that favor. Not with me, not with you, not with the fan base. There's no reason why you should see part 2 of this next year because it does rival. It does, at least from a feeling standpoint, it definitely rivals what Kevin Sumlin did in year 2 and beyond. It definitely rivals that. It just feels like you're in the middle of you're in the middle of nowhere right now. You don't know what's about to happen. You don't know what this team is going to do. It feels like they're not going to be on the right side of wins from this point forward because it just doesn't feel like they have any idea of how they should be going about doing things. And that is the most concerning thing to me. So
100%, because, and I have heard from sources as well that this was Brennan's first choice of coaching staff between Babers, Akina, Gonzalez, the position coaches. Like he didn't have a lot of no's. So that's just for the first part of your question is that, good people want to coach with good people. Well, apparently a lot of people thought Brent Brennan was ready for this opportunity. I do. Again, as you've said, Saul, I think he's a good person. I think he's a good football coach. I just don't know if he is a good football coach for Arizona at this critical juncture in time. It doesn't feel like it. And if this is the staff that he hired on first choice with the idea that he was going to flip the Dino Babers hire into making an inexperienced person the play caller and have Babers consult with that person and have Josh Oglesby coaching offensive line and have Jose Umalo coaching an inexperienced defensive line and having Dwayne Akina trying to puzzle piece the most injured defensive roster probably in the nation, and all of these different things that have been major issues with Arizona. If this was Brennan's first choice, that is as much of an indictment on him as anything else.
Yeah, Matt, you kind of hit on something I always say, and especially when around coaching hires, is that it's always time and place with a coach. And sometimes the most logical things don't work out. And you know that as a Nebraska fan. You could not hit a bigger home run than hiring Scott Frost when you did.
Yeah.
Time and place. And that's why looking at, you're always looking at history. What did this coach do here at a particular school at a particular time? It doesn't really mean anything. It's about time and place right now. And to your point, Brent Brennan seemed fairly logical at the time. May not have been the right time and place. I mean, I advocated for Johnny Nansen. Remember that, Saul?
Yeah.
Just as continuity. And I thought he would have kept the core, and maybe he wouldn't have. Brent Brennan did a great job. I mean, he did keep most of the core. Some of the guys left, and some of those were key guys. But so he won with family in February, but that's just not enough. I mean, winning in February is not enough.
I think that's what everybody got fooled on, right? Like I'll fully admit, like I didn't know what to expect, but the fact that he was able to keep these guys together, I was like, well, to me at least, that feels like maybe he can recruit, because that's a hell of a pitch if you can keep these guys from taking multi-million-dollar deals elsewhere. You just know people were coming at T-Mac like crazy. I know for a fact they were throwing money at him, like, and he turned it down. Why? To stay with this coaching staff, because he felt good about where they were at and he didn't want to bounce. Cool. And then this happens, and you're like, well, maybe I had this completely wrong. And
I thought that was like 90% of the job. Keep Noah, T-Mac, Manu, you're good. It was like 9% of the job, maybe, but not 90.
Yeah. No, for sure. We will get to more here in a second, but Anthony Gimino is here, and I want to tell you a little bit about his work in the next break. Folks, become a PHNX diehard. You can't miss out on some of the good stuff that Anthony's writing right here. A lot of stuff that's behind the paywall. And guess what? For a limited time intro offer of $48, you can become a diehard today. We have a lot of cool merch behind the scenes. Go check out the website. Go read Anthony's articles, and there's more to come. There's going to be a couple things that are coming out U of A related here in the short term, here in the next couple weeks, actually, that we're working on. So it's going to be an exciting time to become a diehard. You get a free membership card. You get a free t-shirt of your choice upon sign up. And then you get an entrance into the Discord lounge, where we're always talking about a lot of cool stuff, even stuff that happens behind the scenes that we will not say here on air. So become a diehard, and you get discounts on events like the Territorial Cup event that is going on down in Tucson. Buy your tickets to hopefully root on Arizona as they beat the Sun Devils. Hopefully, because that's the only other thing that I can see that can possibly salvage this season. Because Lord knows I don't need any more Sun Devils all up in my business talking to me about how we didn't meet expectations and they surpassed expectations, blah, 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 blah. I don't care. It's just one of those things where I just hope that they can listen. I don't care about the next two games. I really don't. Beat ASU and we're all good. I'll give you that. We're all good if we beat ASU. All right, folks. Guys, before we go, I do want to get your kind of your feel overall. If you were going to let go of Brent Brennan, what's the type of coach that you think you would want to seek out? Because we've just kind of gone through the gamut here at the University of Arizona. We had Rich Rod, a beleaguered coach who had a lot of success early on in his career. Then he went to Michigan, didn't meet expectations, got a life raft over here, took us to a bowl game, did some really good things. Great. Then he had the scandal, got fired, and he's gone. All right. Then we bring in another coach who has also been historically successful, didn't meet expectations at Texas A&M, got the job here. Had a decent first year, but missed a field goal, didn't make the bowl game, went 5-7. And after that, it was an absolute disaster because apparently somebody just did not give a damn about coaching anymore. And then we hire a journeyman assistant coach, coordinator in Jed Fish, who was able to really rally this program in the middle of COVID and put them back on track, beating obviously Oklahoma last year. And then we hire, I don't know if you want to call it a legacy hire or what, but, Brennan, who had attachments to this program before. I know there's a lot of boosters that were really in love with Coach Brennan. And
January 24th hire is what it was.
And so I don't know where you go from here. So, Anthony, if you're Matt, if you're looking at who would possibly be the guy to come in here and fix this, is there a person out there, and what does their DNA look like if you don't have a name?
Yeah, that's a really hard question to answer in the abstract, because you're right. You can hire the retread head coach. Arizona's gone down that path before. You can hire the hot coordinator. I mean, Mike Stoops was the hot coordinator in the country when Arizona hired him. It made perfect sense. Sometimes that works out, sometimes it doesn't. For Arizona, it kind of worked out well for a little bit and then it didn't. Or you can hire the head coach from a lower level conference. Arizona just did that, by the way. But I think you're looking for a very energetic, up and coming young offensive coach, whatever that is. There's really no shortage of those guys in the country. I can't spit any names at you right now, but if your next move in a head coaching position is always the opposite guy, then I think you're looking young, offensive-minded coordinator.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I don't think it's necessarily the opposite of what Brent Brennan is, because Brent has kind of cut his teeth on the offensive side of things, but who's the most successful first-year coach in college football this year? Without question, and probably should be the national coach of the year, it's Curt Cignetti at Indiana. And he is an older guy, spent a lot of his time cutting his teeth at James Madison, and that has translated extremely well to Indiana. Who is maybe the next year cycle of that guy that's been sort of a journeyman in the group of 5 level? I would say to some extent, it's probably Jamie Chadwell. And he's only 47 years old. He is at Liberty right now, spent a number of years at Coastal Carolina, has cut his teeth in the group of 5. He has proven at every level that he is a legitimately good head football coach. Give him his first Power 5 opportunity. You're going to get, I mean, it's going to be a pretty penny to hire him away from Liberty, especially a private school that has a good amount of money for the group of 5 and is going to be competing every year for that group of 5 playoff spot. But a guy like Jamie Chadwell, a journeyman group of 5 guy who doesn't have any Arizona ties. Look, Fish didn't have any Arizona ties. Didn't matter. Won 7 straight games to finish the end of last year. If a guy like Jamie Chadwell could come in here, he could flip things around immediately. And that is a guy who would be extremely good for a guy like Noah Fafita as well, because we saw what he did with Grayson McCall. Obviously, unfortunately, McCall's careers ended now because of concussions at NC State. But we saw what he did with Grayson McCall at Coastal Carolina. We see what he's doing this year at Liberty, albeit against one of the easiest schedules in the country. I really think Jamie Chadwell is a great coach, and I think that Arizona could get a guy like that to come to Tucson and to build his career from there. Look, he's not a guy at 47 that would stay here forever, but he doesn't need to. Right the ship, stabilize the program, and get Arizona to a place where they're not hiring in late January. Instead, they're hiring in December, and they can get a high-profile, good up-and-coming coach and then continue the positive trend that was set in 2023.
Yeah, right now he's coming off a loss to Rich Rodriguez. Let's hire that guy.
At Kennesaw State.
So I agree with you too in terms of, you know, where your head is at, and like I like that. I am going to veer off the path a little bit. I've seen Jim Tressel, who won multiple national championships at the Division II level at Youngstown State. I've seen Chris Kleiman do the same thing at North Dakota. And those two individuals, now granted, Jim Tressel went to Ohio State. That's a little bit of a different animal. But Chris Kleiman going to K-State, to me, when Chris Kleiman went to K-State, he matched the identity for who they want to be as right. In terms of a football program, right? They are always about that family brand. If you've ever been to Manhattan, Kansas, it's purple and white every single where you go, and it's all about family, right? And the program that he's built is stable, right? Like a stable program that's not going to fluctuate too crazily from one year to another. You're looking at a range of maybe 10 or 11 wins to maybe, 6 or 7. Like that's the range. They're not going to not be bowl eligible because they're just a good program, right? I would love to see a coach who's been at a program for a while that loves it. Kind of like Tommy Lloyd, who was at Gonzaga forever as an assistant, finally gets his one shot, but he's not looking to jump ship and bounce around to different jobs. They want a home. And Brent Brennan said that. And he said that coming in. He wanted to make Tucson the home, right? But there's a difference in believing in your own DNA and your own program and getting your opportunity and establishing that at a new spot and believing in your stuff until the rubber meets the road and all of a sudden you don't know who you are. And I feel like that's what Brent Brennan is right now. It's like when you say things like receivers don't know where they're going or we don't know who we are right now, we're trying to figure it out. To me, that means you don't have a really good handle on what you want to be as a coach and what kind of program you want to implement. You kind of let everybody you let the inmates run the asylum to a certain degree and everything is broken. And now you have to fix it. And I don't know if he can fix it. And I don't feel good about that. So the DNA of the coach that I would like to get is somebody that's proven to win championships at some level consistently, knows how to build a program and really knows how to build a program in this new NIL era, which is a whole nother beast and a whole nother problem of itself. That has been today's time. We appreciate you all so much for joining us. You make sure to follow Matt Reynoldson on the Believe Network, Believe in Wildcats. He's got some great footage that he's going to break down off of this game and also a basketball season coming up. That's coming out tomorrow night. So check him out. Follow him on Twitter at Matt_Reynoldson. You can follow AG Wildcat Report with his Anthony Gimino on Twitter as well. You can follow me at Saul_Bookman. And you can follow the great Kevin Thomas behind the scenes at Kev Thomas Writes. But for the whole crew, We appreciate you all. Bear down as always. Until next time, peace.
We all silly like the mayor.